Hey everyone, I'm your host Peter Zablocki, and you're listening to History Shorts. I hope everyone's having a great day so far, and thank you for making this show a small part of that. If you'd like to help me out with a small gesture, please leave History Shorts a rating or a review, and click that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. For sources and books used as the basis for these episodes, how to advertise on a show, and other information such as a list of our upcoming guests on the Conversation series, or a link to our Patreon account where you can find exclusive episodes not heard here, please visit www.historyshortspodcast.com. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate podcast listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the globe, all in one place. Download Podcast Republic now and take your podcast experience to the next level. Having said all of that, in the summer of 1893, with America on the brink of financial collapse, President Grover Cleveland vanished from public view. To the nation, he was recovering from a minor dental procedure. To a few trusted confidants, the truth was far more alarming. The President of the United States was about to undergo a radical surgery for a potentially deadly cancer, and it would take place in total secrecy, aboard a private yacht in the middle of Long Island Sound. In the midst of a national crisis, the commander-in-chief would be sedated, sliced open, and have a large portion of his upper jaw removed, all while the press and public were told nothing. Here is the rest of that story.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
By 1893, Grover Cleveland was a man of contrasts, the only president to serve two non-consecutive terms until Donald J. Trump, of course. He had returned to the White House that March for a second stint, older, grayer, and heavier. Known for his bulldog bluntness and rotund stature, Cleveland was a man who valued privacy, despised melodrama, and saw the presidency as a sacred trust. But soon after his second inauguration, storm clouds gathered. First came the Panic of 1893, one of the worst economic crashes in all of American history. Banks failed, railroads collapsed, unemployment soared. The nation on the edge of depression. Cleveland, a firm believer in the gold standard and limited government intervention, faced mounting pressure. His leadership would be tested, but fate had one more cruel twist. That spring, Cleveland noticed a rough spot on the roof of his mouth, just above a decaying tooth. At first, he ignored it, but then it grew rapidly. Pain followed. His mustache, thick and iconic, began to sag on the left side. Alarmed, he consulted his longtime friend and physician, Dr. Joseph Bryant, who examined the lesion and turned pale. What he saw was deeply suspicious, a dark, ulcerated mass with jagged edges and deep roots in the hard palate of the upper jaw. It had all the hallmarks of a malignant tumor. In normal times, such a diagnosis would be terrifying, but for a sitting president in the midst of economic turmoil, it was political dynamite. The public revelation of cancer, especially facial cancer, might have triggered panic. Cleveland feared markets would plunge even further, confidence would evaporate, and his ability to govern would be undermined. Moreover, the nature of the surgery required to remove the tumor was disfiguring. A portion of his jaw and palate would need to be cut out. He might not speak clearly ever again. He might not survive at all, for that matter. So Cleveland made a fateful decision. The surgery would be done in secret. A plan was quickly set in motion. Bryant assembled a hand-picked team of 6 elite doctors and surgeons, all sworn to absolute secrecy. The president's friend, Elias Benedict, a wealthy banker, offered his luxurious vessel, the Oneida, for the procedure. The ship would sail quietly from New York to the calm waters near Long Island, and there, far from prying eyes, the surgery would take place. On the morning of July 1st, 1893, Cleveland and his entourage boarded the Oneida under the pretense of a 4-day fishing trip. The president wore a wide-brimmed hat and a cheerful smile, even as he carried with him the weight of his own possible demise. That evening, as the yacht anchored off Long Island, the dining room was converted into an operating theater. White sheets were draped across the windows. Chloroform was prepared. Knives were sharpened. At 9 a.m. the next morning, President Cleveland lay back in a reclining chair, tilted at a steep angle, as Dr. Bryant administered anesthesia. For the next 90 minutes, in a cramped room aboard a gently swaying yacht, the surgeons worked with steely precision. They made an incision along the left upper gum line, lifting back tissue to expose the tumor. With scalpel and saw, they removed nearly the entire left side of Cleveland's upper jaw, along with 5 teeth, a portion of the hard palate, and part of the maxillary bone. The tumor, later confirmed as a slow-growing cancer, was successfully taken out. A sample was preserved in alcohol and quietly sent to the Army Medical Museum in Washington, labeled only by a number. Blood loss was minimal. Infection risk, however, was high, but the patient never stirred. When it was over, the doctors stitched him up, packed the cavity with gauze, and gently brought him back to consciousness. Cleveland spent the next 5 days on the yacht, floating off the coast while recovering in absolute secrecy. On July 5th, the Oneida returned to Manhattan. Cleveland, pale and weakened, disembarked with the aid of a cane. He was seen in public only briefly in the following weeks. When questions arose about his appearance and voice, which was noticeably softer and slightly nasal, the White House attributed to a toothache and some minor dental work. A cover story was circulated about 2 bad teeth being extracted. Behind closed doors, the president was fitted with a rubber prosthetic, custom molded to restore the contour of his jaw and allow him to speak and eat without obvious impairment. The device worked. His face returned to its familiar shape. His speech, though altered, was clear enough for public addresses. By late summer, he resumed all normal appearances. Only a handful of people in the world knew the truth, but the secret almost didn't hold. That August, Elijah J. Edwards, a reporter for the Philadelphia Press, caught wind of the real story. Citing anonymous sources, he published a stunning expose revealing that Cleveland had undergone major surgery for cancer and that it had taken place aboard a yacht. The article sent ripples through the press, though most editors dismissed it as far-fetched sensationalism. The Cleveland administration issued a flat denial, insisting the story was pure fiction. Edwards was discredited and marginalized. Few actually believed him. The cover-up held for the rest of Cleveland's term. In fact, he continued to govern with dignity and resolve for the next few years. His handling of the economic panic was criticized, but his integrity remained largely intact. He left office in 1897 and retired to Princeton, New Jersey, where he lived quietly until his death in 1908. He never spoke publicly of the surgery. It wasn't until 1917, nearly a quarter century later, that the full story was confirmed. Dr. William Keene, the last surviving surgeon from the procedure, published a detailed account in the Saturday Evening Post, revealing everything: the cancer diagnosis, the yacht surgery, the rubber prosthetics, and the political calculus behind the secrecy. By then, public opinion had softened. Most Americans were astonished, even impressed, by Cleveland's stoicism and the elaborate cover-up. What had once been scandalous now seemed bold, even heroic. Today, the idea of a president undergoing secret surgery seems almost inconceivable. In the age of 24-hour news and medical transparency, such a deception would be exposed within minutes, well, maybe hours. But in 1893, at a time when The line between public duty and private health was sharply guarded. Cleveland had taken a personal gamble, and won. Still, questions linger. Was the secrecy justified? Did Cleveland's fear of market panic outweigh the public's right to know? Was it a noble act of responsibility or a dangerous breach of trust? Well, historians remain divided. Thanks for listening.